or contributors are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. All information on Explorers Seekers of the Truth is provided in good faith. However, we make no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of any information on this talk show or website.
From monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings, join the Explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth to what goes bump in the night.
Good evening and welcome to Explorers Seekers of the Truth, episode 66, World's Strangest Alien Abduction Cases. Tonight, as always, I'm joined by my best friend and co-host, Les Sincavage. How are you this evening, Les?
Well, you froze up there, so I don't know what you said after you said that you're joined by me. It just froze up and I couldn't hear a word you were saying, so I'm assuming you asked how I'm doing. And the answer to that is could be better. Apparently, we are not live on Facebook. As always, technical difficulties. We are live, hopefully, on YouTube. So I did text my wife and ask her to put a post on Facebook stating that we couldn't go live.
I already did.
Okay, all right, good. So I just saw somebody posted something from Facebook, so I don't know if we are live or if we're not live. I have no idea. But if you could hear us on Facebook, it might be best to travel over to our YouTube channel. So, yeah. And as always, I guess I'll go to where you can find us. You can find us live on YouTube, hopefully. You can find us live on Facebook sometimes, or you could just contact us on YouTube and Facebook. You can find us on X, or formerly Twitter, at Explorers Group. Our website, explorersgroup.com. Whichever platform you're watching us live on, if you comment under the show, we should hopefully be able to see your comments live, and we should be able to comment back to you, providing everything works. Because as always, nothing goes as planned on this show. Nothing ever happens the way we want it to, but hopefully that's where you're seeing us. Hopefully you are seeing us, and that's how you could reach us while you're on there. Now, I do see. Is that you? That says it's playing from Facebook? Okay, so apparently we are live on Facebook. I don't know. It was telling me that we couldn't access Facebook. So, you know what?
Oh, it's not showing up on that we're on Facebook, but we are on Facebook.
Exactly. On the back end, for those of you who are watching live, on our back end interface, it's saying
Hey, on your back end.
On my back end, yes. It is saying that we are not live on Facebook, but if we are, fantastic. If not, I apologize. So, that said, Chad, do you want to tell everybody what we'll be talking about today?
Well, tonight we're going to be talking about some of the stranger alien abduction cases, but as always, we always try to find those like lesser known stories. We don't like we do cover some of the major cases, but we like to dig in and kind of find those weird, seldom heard of stories. So that's what we'll be looking into tonight. Now, some of them are popular, but they aren't the
mainstream,
super high end.
Yeah. Well, I do see that Josh and Cindy are commenting from Facebook. So thank you guys for doing that, so we know that you are able to see us live. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. So like Chad said, we're covering some of the more lesser known abduction cases. And in past shows, which you could go back on Facebook, on our website, or Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, Amazon Music. You can find the archive shows on any of those media to listen to some of the old shows, we covered Betty and Barney Hill, we covered the Travis Walton case, and this time we wanted to discuss some that are not as mainstream as Chad had said. So you want to go to the first case that we'll be covering tonight, buddy?
So we're going to head back to October 11th, 1973. I'm going to kind of do this as we used to do it, as a story.
I like that. I like that.
We'll bring that back. So we're fishing the west bank of the Pascagoula River in Jackson County, Mississippi, when we hear a whirling, whizzing sound and see two flashing blue lights and observe an oval-shaped object 30 to 40 feet or 9 to 12 meters across and 8 to 10 foot or 2 to 3 meters high. We are unconscious. We are conscious but paralyzed while three creatures with robotic slit mouths and crab-like pincers take us on board the object and subject us to examination.
Dum, dum, dum. So this is what 42-year-old Charles Hickson and 19-year-old Calvin Parker told the Jackson County, Mississippi Sheriff's Office. And the Pascagoula is a city in Jackson City, Mississippi, or Jackson County, Mississippi, I'm sorry, in the United States. And it's also the birthplace of the late Jimmy Buffett.
Now, you also can't forget the most famous person.
Who's that?
From Pascagoula. Uncle Elmer from the WWF.
Oh, yeah, Uncle
who used to be
Elmer.
with Hillbilly Jim and
Oh, that's a nice blast from the past.
Yeah, I actually had to look that up.
So, Uncle Elmer. God, that's an oldie but a goodie.
So now, after this abduction, both Hickson and Parker, they both passed lie detector tests at different points and were even questioned under hypnosis. Okay. Investigators are on the record as saying the pair's stories never really wavered from their original accounts. Now, over the years, details did, kind of come to front of memory and kind of got put into stuff, but the story never changed. It was just like they remembered something about the room they were in, or the taste or the sound. So little details may have come front of mind at that point, but the story never actually changed.
Well, I mean, that's understandable because, I mean, think about just our general memories from childhood and stuff like that. You remember tidbits, and as time goes on, you kind of remember it slightly different, or a certain smell or a object or a place might trigger something that kind of goes a little bit deeper into the psyche, and you're like, oh yeah, that, so it's still the same but slightly different. So that, I mean, that makes sense, especially over 40 some years,
Yeah.
But well,
you think about it too, like,
go ahead.
Well, like you were saying, like when you're a kid, every house always seems so much bigger. And then you grow up and go back to that house and you're like, oh my God, how do we all fit in this house at any given point?
Except for the old apartment back in college. Every time I go back there, I'm like, God, it seems bigger than the last time I was here. Which that place was always bizarre.
I was going to say, it's just because it's bizarre and it just feels that way all the time.
So in 2019, Maria Blair came forward after 45 years. On that same October night, Blair was near the river waiting for her husband, Jerry, to leave on a boat to work offshore. Jerry fell asleep, and Maria saw a strange blue light streaking back and forth. She didn't think much of it until the next day when she heard about Parker and Hickens' story. So her husband, Jerry Blair, was quoted saying, when she would talk about it, I'd tell her to shut up. People are going to think you're crazy. Which is a very common thing for people, especially back then. This sort of thing wasn't as commonplace as it is now with the whole, uptick of paranormal shows. So back then, religion was a lot bigger and a lot more prominent in communities back then. So you didn't want to talk about anything strange. You didn't want to be deemed a weirdo back then.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, and also it wasn't in vogue to be one of these people, a UFO contactee, witness, or anything like that. It was kind of, hey, keep your mouth shut. You didn't see what we saw. Just let it go. Don't bring it up.
Right.
So,
Right.
also in the same year that she came forward back in 2019, the city of Pascagoula and Jackson County's Historical Society and the Main Street Pascagoula, which is like a little civic business group,
Mhm.
they actually erected a historical marker at Lighthouse Park, which describes the events of that night.
Hmm.
Now, one of the sad things is Mr. Hickson had died in 2011, so he would never get to see the marker,
Hmm.
which
That
describes
sucks.
his encounter
Yeah.
as one of America's best documented cases of alien abductions. But Mr. Parker, though, was still alive and he was there, and he told the WLOX News how much it meant to be finally be recognized after years of ridicule. I said that word wrong. So he said, and this is his direct quote from that news article. It is emotional for me. I can't really describe it because I would break out in tears if I do. And he said, I wish when I die, I could be buried right here underneath the plaque that would explain it best. It's quite an honor.
Yeah. Well, I could imagine
So,
after 40 some years of having that pent up to finally get that kind of retribution, I guess, for lack of better terms, to go from being the town kook to finally being accepted and people being like, yeah, you know what, this is legit. This is something that they actually experienced.
well, yeah, I mean, it would definitely be, an honor in that sense. At least, people may not believe you, but at least there's enough of a case there for them to put something there to say, hey, this may or may not have happened, but this is the story and this is about where it happened.
Right.
So,
Right.
do you want to bring up a few of those pictures, like
Yeah.
a picture of the alien that they claimed? Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
this is kind of the shot of them by the river and the creatures coming up, and I think that's supposed to be the craft in the background.
yeah, I think that or some kind of weird eye.
Yeah, yeah.
but
That's kind of, I was like, is that an eyeball or a craft?
but yeah, so I mean, you can kind of see there the depictions with the kind of covered head or kind of dome, like not dome shaped, but like the pointy outings on the head and the kind of just
Mhm.
like almost reminds you of like some kind of suit being worn over top of it, like a masked,
Yeah,
suit.
yeah.
And the hands with the thumb and almost like crab like, hands there and
I'll
relatively
bring up
tall.
another. I'll bring up another picture because this is more depicting the scene of what they were
Mhm.
experiencing. But let me bring up the other one quick, and it'll give more a better representation of the look of the creatures.
Now, I was going to say the funniest thing about the first photo, though, if you look at the two guys that they have depicted as Parker and Hickson,
Mhm.
looks like the two guys that are fishing in Jaws that use the wife's meat rump roast or whatever.
Yeah, that's
That's what
true.
they look like. I just realized that
Well,
when I was looking there.
that whole picture looked like a really piss poor Photoshop job. So I mean, it could very well have been that
Yeah,
as like a kind of line arty kind of representation of them.
yeah. So you see there, they're saying it was approximately 6 foot tall, which is you know relatively not that tall, even in humans. I mean, it's about a little bit above average for a
Mhm.
human. And if you look at it, like look at the hands, how they're kind of that crab-like pincer claw.
Even the feet too in this
Yeah.
representation. Almost has
So no,
like a slug or snail kind of eye thing going on there.
yeah, it's kind of weird. Like it has three like protruding facial things. Like you would think like ears and a nose or something.
I don't know. It's very bizarre.
Yeah. So now looking at that, it is very interesting, and it kind of, if you notice, it does kind of, the representation has a lot of human quality to it, though.
Yeah.
Like if you look at like the abdomen, how it separates from the chest a little bit,
Yep.
how it has what appear to be elbow and knee joints, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
so bring up that the biosuit picture. for me, please. Okay. So that's an IDA-59 Russian rebreather suit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So look at the two things hanging off the head.
Looks very much like those snail protrusions.
Yep. And then look at the one in the front, the metal capped one.
Yep.
Right. Then look at the gloves.
Very crabby.
Yeah.
Pincery. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's a Russian, like I said, it's a Russian IDA-59.
Right. Well, if you go, it looks very similar, because I'll bring the other one. I mean, look at like the neck area underneath the protrusions and stuff. It looks very loose, and even around like the belly and stuff like that, it almost looks like loose fabric.
Yeah.
Like baggy skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it to me, it very well fits the bill with the hold on, let me bring it back up.
Yeah. So
there we go, of this thing.
Now that, like I said, is a Russian IDA-59, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's to say these two gentlemen were not abducted, but not abducted by aliens? They are fishing on the coast on a river.
Right.
During the 70s, during the height of the Cold War.
True.
How do we know this isn't a Russian psyop?
Could be.
So they're really abducted. They really see this thing. There's some kind of neurotoxin used, some kind of agent to create some paranormal, LSD, whatever it may be, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All of a sudden, they're put through these examinations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they take some samples, whatever they're looking for. Maybe they're looking for radiation, mercury, something in these coastal people to give them some sort of advantage, or maybe they were looking for something we might have lost. They got that close to the coast. They figure, let's abduct these two guys. Like they seem like they're local.
Mm-hmm.
Grab them, pull them on some ship, make them think it's an alien abduction. So now, again, it goes back to what we talked about, the War of the Worlds scenario. We create this panic where now we have to share all of our technology. Well, of course, Russia says we have. As we've seen, they never had. Or they have, but it's not what they claim. It's not hypersonics. It's not this. It's not that. So maybe this is part of that War of the Worlds scenario where they're just conducting psyops to get us thinking again. If Roswell was a psyop, what's to say this wasn't? I'm pinning this on the Russians. Maybe it's also a test of our coastal security by Americans.
True.
Hey, let's try to infiltrate this area, create this panic, see how local law enforcement, the state, the government, the governor, the local military bases, how they handle and respond to this.
Mm-hmm.
So we know if, hey, something does happen here, we know what the response is going to be like. It's a preparative test. It's never 100% rule out that we wouldn't do things like this.
Oh, yeah. You can't rule anything like that out.
There's a certain three-letter agency that likes to do things like that.
Right. That's very true. CIA, yeah. I mean, I shouldn't have said that out loud, because now they're going to start fucking with our signal. Yeah. Lord knows, every time we start talking about that, the show drops out.
Yeah. So, I mean, and also, I'm not saying it couldn't have been aliens. I'm just looking at we could present reasonable things that could be the answer and not necessarily extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it could well be just have been an alien abduction. I mean, other people, claim to be abducted. These guys went, their entire lives with the same story about it. Like I said, it doesn't mean it's not it doesn't mean it was an alien. It just means something happened to them that's stuck in their head
Right.
as
Right.
aliens. I mean, there was countless plots of things where people think they've been abducted, but it's really people doing testing and stuff like that over the years.
True. True. Or I mean, because look at the Patterson Gimlin film. You know, what I mean, Gimlin has stuck to that story since '67. You know, and he's pretty much unwavered. It may not have been a Bigfoot. It may not have been an alien abduction, but it was real to what they experienced. And if their mind at the time built it to be, oh, it was this crab clawed snail eye, whatever, bipedal creature. So in their mind, their mind's eye, their memory, that's what they saw, that's what they experienced, that was real to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, here's the thing, like if something happens to you, well, and you witnessed it, you experienced it, you've had the senses, all your senses are part of this. To them, it was an abduction. Whether we sit here 45, 50, 45, almost 50 years later and can come up with 20 plausible answers, to them, it was an abduction. They lived their entire life under the impression they were abducted by aliens. So to me, they were abducted by something, someone, something. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're right, that they were right. I'm just presenting some kind of logical conclusion, so I don't have to put tinfoil on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, they saw what they saw, they stuck to it. What they experienced is what they believe happened. And especially, I mean, to your point with like the Cold War during that time, it could have absolutely have been some sort of a covert operation or test to see, A, B, or C. But again, I don't know. That's not for us to decide. But it is an interesting story nonetheless of encounter / abduction. So we wanted to cover it. Moving on to the next story, we're going to be talking about Elizabeth Clare, and this goes back to 1956. This was in South Africa. This woman publicly claimed to have been contacted by aliens multiple times between 1954 and 1963. The first visitation supposedly occurred when she was 7 years old, and she was one of the first women to claim a sexual relationship with an extraterrestrial, which is interesting.
So she's also one of the first people to promote the idea of a better world and belief in a cosmic consciousness. In her book, Beyond the Light Barrier, she strived to convey the message of peace, love, understanding, and environmentalism. She credited this to the superior wisdom of the advanced and immaculate utopian Venetian civilization.
Yeah, and in 1954, Claire's sister May relayed to her that the native Zulu people were reporting appearances of the lightning bird in the sky. So in response, Elizabeth and her children traveled from Johannesburg to the farm, and she ascended this flying saucer hill the following day.
The local Zulu people.
Yeah. And the lightning bird.
If anybody knows if Credo Matua is still alive, please let me know. I'd love to get him on the show.
That would be interesting, right?
Yeah. So now, December 27th of 1954, she claimed to have seen a starship descend. It hovered 3 meters above ground, emitting only a soft hum its hull spinning through its central dome remains stationary. So
Okay.
basically, the outer parts are spinning, the inner part is a stationary dome.
Mhm.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. Akon,
Not the rapper or R&B artist or whatever he is.
yeah, the spaceman was supposedly clearly visible through one of the 3 portholes, but a barrier of heat that emanated from the ship prevented her from approaching, and his scout ship soon again departed.
Okay, so this is where I'm kind of confused. This craft, the thing that was spinning, and there was the dome, stationary dome. Was that the primary ship, or was that his scout ship?
You know, that's the whole thing. Like she goes as we read through these parts, because this is several different sightings and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
She
there's
talks
far more to this than what we even cover, too.
Yeah, there. She talks about like different ships at different times, and like
Mhm.
seeing one ship, but then she'll say like scout ship, but she doesn't
Yeah, because
reference
like
if
there's
that
a
was the original.
mothership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like she doesn't really reference how it comes out as the different, if it's one ship that she's referring to, or if it's like several small ships and a big ship at one time.
Mhm.
But the funny thing
But
is,
in this,
Akon.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to go
No.
off on something there.
Right. Well, you can, but I guess so there's 3 portholes on this scout ship that she's able to see this guy from. So I'm assuming this is where he's manning this craft, right? So she sees him through one of the 3 portholes. But this ship is creating a barrier of heat that she can't get to it, and I'm assuming this craft is on the ground at this point if she's trying to walk up to it.
When she was saying about it hovering, um, just 3 meters above the ground, so what, 12
Okay.
foot?
All right. Yeah. So she's
That's
trying to
weird.
approach it, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm going with you on that. Like, it's kind of weird. If something's 12 foot off the ground, what were you hoping? Like, it's even if you
Right.
stood directly under it, it's still 12 feet above you.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of ballsy on her part to see this craft just kind of, I mean, it's something that you do not see every day, something that doesn't fit any description known, especially at that time in what would we say was 54-ish?
Yeah, around
Uh,
54.
yeah, you don't see anything like that around that time. So to just be like, oh, I'm going to go walk up and check this thing out, I think is kind of brave on her part, or crazy.
Yeah, well, here's the thing too. Remember, her sister had told her in May of 54 about the Zulu seeing the lightning birds in the sky.
Hmm.
And then she traveled like the next day to go to the area where these things were seen.
Right,
So
right.
clearly she's neither very brave or she had some kind of emotional draw or
Uh-huh.
subconscious draw to this place, or to this specific alien group.
True, which I think might kind of come to light later on in this story.
It may.
It may, yeah. So, let's see. Okay, so on April 7th in 1956, she visited the hilltop again after further reports of the lightning bird. This time, Akon took her aboard his scout ship, a craft some 60 feet or 18 meters in diameter. Inside, she met a second pilot, a stocky and darker skinned than Akon, who was supposedly a botanist as well as an astrophysicist. And she was allegedly shown a lens that offered views through the craft's floor. And with only a hum emitting from below and no sense of movement, they were transported to the enormous cigar shaped mothership, which had a garden like interior, which is interesting again as well, which kind of answers some of those questions of, how do they last so long in space if they have their own garden?
Yeah, or the ship itself is biological.
Which we talked about in a different
Yeah.
show as well.
Yeah, so that it would definitely, if it was a biological ship, garden, growing and replenishing and having its own environment, it would, probably be the easiest way of traveling.
True.
Yeah.
Because I mean, think about it with that humming noise. Excuse me. Like mycelium, like fungi, mushrooms, and stuff like that. Through their root systems, they emit some sort of a hum, and you could even, some people would attach like electrodes to it and attach that to a speaker, and they actually can produce almost like a biological music, which is actually kind of interesting. So I mean, this kind of, if this is a biological craft of sense, that would kind of make sense that it would emit this kind of tone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, definitely would make sense for what, in that sense of it all. Now, this is where it gets all juicy and titillating.
Ooh, go on.
During the encounter, kisses were exchanged, and Akon revealed to Elizabeth that she was in fact a reincarnated Venetian, a long lost soulmate. He further explained that they occasionally took Earth women as partners, as the offspring strengthened their race with an infusion of new blood. He also claimed that a number of Venetians were serendipitously living amongst human beings.
So secretly hiding amongst us? Interesting.
And also the infusion of new blood into their race.
Which coincides with last week's, or the last show we had. I can't say last week's because it was quite a few weeks ago.
Yep. So from 5:45 on April 30th of 1956, various observers noted a steady red glow poised at a rocky section of a hill, which remained there until about 2 a.m. in the morning, yet no sign of fire could be found afterwards. So people are witnessing some kind of light in this area, similar being a red glow. So you would think fire, heat.
Of course, yep.
They go to look at it, and there's no burnt, there's no, charcoal, there's no nothing left to indicate fire.
That's kind of interesting, because just a couple of nights ago, Leslie and I took the kids out. I don't remember where the heck we were going. I don't know if we were running a Walmart or what, but we went up over the Broad Mountain right next to where we live. And when we were going across the top, out in the distance, we were clearly able to see what looked like almost like a wildfire, but it was really rainy and everything. So I wouldn't imagine that a wildfire would have been able to been that active. But I mean, it looked like a fire out on the top of the mountain. I saw it. Leslie saw it. The kids saw it. I'm like, look, what is that? Blah, blah, blah. And we didn't stop or anything. We kept going. And then after we got so far, we couldn't see it because of the trees. But on our way back, I'm like, hey, guys, look back, out in the distance. It was gone. I mean, whatever it was covering a large portion of the mountain. And if it were a fire, there's no way it could have been extinguished within the amount of time that we went up and back. Yeah. And we couldn't find it. I mean, it was a massive part of the mountain. So I don't know. Maybe we saw a UFO.
Maybe you saw Akon.
Maybe it was Akon and the Dweebs or whatever. Wasn't it a cartoon, Rude Dog and the Dweebs, back in the 80s? Do you remember that one?
No.
Was it only me? No, you don't remember Rude Dog and the Dweebs?
That might have just been in your imagination, buddy.
It was a real cartoon. One of the lesser known cartoons of the 80s.
Definitely.
Well, on July 17th in 1956, after their family farm was sold, Claire revisited the area and claimed to have taken a series of 7 photos of Akon's scout ship using her sister's or daughter's simple brownie box camera. She claimed that the vivid light flashes turned into a dull gray craft enveloped in a shimmering heat haze, and then and for about an hour the disc darted silently over a rise near the farmhouse, making several weaving detours, and shone like silver in bright sunlight before streaking away out of sight. And Edgar Sievers, a ufologist from Pretoria, said that Claire's family saw her leave the homestead alone and suggested that the frail Elizabeth would have found it difficult to throw a car hubcap and photograph it at the same time. He also stated that no type of hubcap was known to sufficiently resemble the disc in her photos, which I couldn't find any of the photos before the show went live, but I do have a picture here of Elizabeth and Akon.
Akon,
the spaceman. And one of the things, too, that went along with this story was that Akon supposedly took her aboard for 4 months, took her to his planet of Alpha Centauri, where she gave birth to his alien child. So that's Elizabeth Clare and Akon.
Yeah.
So this kind of fits the bill to a lot of these stories we covered with different alien species, encounters and whatnot. You have the first witnessing. So I guess it would be close encounter of the first, second, third, fourth kinds. So it kind of runs the whole gauntlet here, up until abduction, taken off of our planet to their planet, and then reproducing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what happened supposedly to the offspring, because it did say that, she visited the hill with her children. Were they children of her earthbound or terrestrial husband, or were they children with her and Akon? There is a book out there. Oh God, I lost where I put the name of it. Something about if you search her name, you could find the book that tells far more in depth of her story. Rude Dog, Alicia posts, Rude Dog and the Dweebs ran for one season in 1989. It was based on the clothing for Rude Dog. There you go. There is your
I remember the clothing, but I don't remember a cartoon going with it.
Oh yeah, they were very cheesily drawn, like triangle-shaped heads and stuff like that. It was like Rude Dog and the Dweebs was the theme music. I watched all cartoons back in the day.
I'm gonna say.
But all right, so where are we going next?
Oh, let's see. Next few cases we're going to discuss can be found on Finding. What is that?
Dulcinea.
Dulcinea?
Yeah, it's a very weird site.
Yeah.
It's a weird name, I should say.
Yeah. And we'll start with the Antonio Villas Boas case of 1957.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Villas Boas presents one of the earliest and most intriguing accounts in the annals of alien abduction.
Annals, folks. Annals, not anals. Let's say. I'll not make that connection. Though it wouldn't be unheard of.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. He was a Brazilian farmer known for his startling encounters with extraterrestrials dating back to the 1957.
Mm-hmm.
The 1957, back in the day.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Boas claims he was abducted while working late on his farm. After glimpsing an unidentified flying object, he described being taken aboard by humanoid beings who looked very unlike humans.
Mm-hmm.
According to Boas, these creatures wore gray clothing and communicated through a series of animal-like sounds.
Interesting. Kind of makes me think of the movie Signs with like that insectoid kind of like that. I don't know if you could hear that or not.
Yeah,
but like that clicking and whatnot. You know what I mean?
I was about to throw a cup of water at you. Come on, let's face it. That is the dumbest group of aliens ever. You're going to invade a place that's 70% the one thing that can kill you.
Right. Exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
Why?
Well, wasn't it the Tom Cruise movie? War of the Worlds? Was that War of the Worlds?
Well, War of the Worlds was a virus. That's unexpected.
Right, which was found in water. It was like what it was like amoebas or something like that ended up killing them off because of the water in our atmosphere.
No, I think it was originally pneumonia or the flu. In the original War of the Worlds, it's the flu.
Yeah. But yeah, in the Tom Cruise one, I think it was something to do with the water and it killed them off.
But
yeah.
that's unexpected. This group of aliens knew water was a problem and still went to the one planet that is 73% water.
True. Not so bright aliens there.
Okay, M. Night needs
still
to
a good movie though.
The game. Oh, a great movie.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The big twist being that they're scared of water.
Yeah. But back to Boas's story here. Inside the strange UFO, Boas asserted that he encountered human-alien contact of both frightening and intimate nature. An otherworldly female engaged him physically, leading many UFO theorists to suggest this encounter was part of an extraterrestrial program to create a human hybrid alien species. Again, this harkens back to our past show with this constant need to procreate with humans to kind of reestablish the hardiness of our physicality, I guess, because again, we theorize that aliens are us in the future or a version of us in the future coming back to kind of reestablish things that they were lacking due to evolution. But Boas's narrative echoed common elements found within later cases, unexplained disappearances followed by unsettling alien encounters inside distinctively crafted spaceships. This case remains etched as one of history's mysteries relating to the alleged extraterrestrial encounters. One of the things that kind of makes me scratch my head is if you're taken up in this craft. So first of all, you're taken out of your complete environment where you're most comfortable, right? You're taken aboard this alien spaceship, approached by a otherworldly female creature being. So obviously it doesn't look like a female, and it goes on to breed with, like, I don't know how excited I would be in that situation in order to even make the deed possible. Now, that is, in fact, if they did do the deed, how we would do the deed. You know what I mean? Did they may have extracted his stuff in other ways. I don't know. But I mean, just the way it reads, it almost sounds like, I mean, he engaged him physically.
Okay. So I have two statements.
Okay.
One being, depending on what part of Brazil he's from, an alien may have been a best option.
Okay.
Some parts of Brazil, they're not all that great looking. Also, we are not taking into effect that maybe they have alien Viagra.
That's true. And who knows? I mean, maybe this alien creature, because I mean, look at Akon. He looked very human-like. You know what I mean? So maybe it was attractive enough to make it happen.
Okay, and also one of our lovely fans here brings up working late on the farm is a euphemism for hitting the hooch and blacking out. We did not take into effect the thought process of DMT is legal in Brazil. DMT will put you on some fucked up trips.
True.
DMT will also have you experience interactions with aliens and otherworldly beings.
True.
Was he doing DMT?
Was that around back in the 50s? I mean, I don't know much about it.
DMT's been around for thousands of years.
Okay.
The
All right, well, then that
Egyptians
answers
used DMT. The Brazilian, the Amazonian cultures, they have DMT. I think there's DMT found in Asia. Every major society that's westernized civilization has some way of extracting DMT from some organic
Okay.
matter.
All right. So I only asked
They also
because
have
I
DMT
don't know.
capsule.
Yeah, I don't know the history of that, but I have heard that drug used a lot in mushrooms. Okay. I have heard that used a lot
Not
in a lot of.
mushrooms. Psilocybin is mushrooms. DMT is not the same.
Oh, well, I again, I don't
He could have
know.
been
I don't
doing
know.
mushrooms.
He
Mushrooms
could
is
have,
psilocybin.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
DMT.
I did hear that DMT is used a lot. That people use it a lot to kind of expand the mind to get to this sort of other plane of reality or whatever. And I mean,
Yeah.
so I don't know, but and yes, Cindy, I was trying to keep it PG, so I was stumbling there without trying to get too dirty, I guess, for lack of better terms. And Cindy does have a question. Let me bring that up. So, do you think stories from older times would seem to have more validity than current ones, only because of technology and more creative ways to hoax now? Chad and I actually mention this a lot, especially with the books that we read or keep in our library. I know I am a big fan of buying the books from 50s, 60s, 70s, and earlier than that, because I feel, to your point, this stuff was taboo back then. This wasn't mainstream. This wasn't, 800 shows on all the different streaming apps and whatnot of the same, topic. So back then you kept this stuff under the rug. You didn't want to make this public. You didn't want to bring this to light. So I would say I would find more credibility in stories back from earlier days because of the fact that it wasn't mainstream. It was hush hush. So for people to get to the point to actually bring it to light or have their stories told, yeah, I would say that there's a lot more credibility, and I would definitely try and believe something from back then more so than now, because nowadays you have so many people jumping on the bandwagon. I mean, hell, we're engulfed in it. You know what I mean? We are all about this ourselves. And and to your point with the technology and especially AI now, you could hoax anything. So the credibility of things nowadays, I find it hard to swallow, and I am a lot more skeptical, and I scrutinize things from nowadays more so than I do stuff from the past. So yeah, I would say that in around to come full circle here, I would say I would find older stories to be more credible. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, God, with all this CGI, AI, all this, I mean, I've seen probably 30 things like this Miami alien mall thing where people are posting this video of this creature walking across the boulevard in Miami. It's clearly some kind of AI CGI thing walking the way it's walking and stuff like that. And they're saying that it's an alien that was at this mall where these kids got into this fight, and they got into it wasn't a fight. They were panicking and running from the aliens, but yet there's video of these kids fighting.
Right.
The kids aren't running away. They're running outside the mall and getting into other fights. And then they ran down the street and robbed a guy of his car, 50 some kids, Yeah, the older stuff, even like the photos, because it's so much harder to fake an old photo.
Oh God, yeah.
There'd be so many things that you could, nowadays we could take the camera and reproduce, say, like they were talking about that earlier case with the hubcap. The only thing I didn't like is they said she was so frail that she couldn't throw a hubcap and take a photo of it. That was kind of like, then I'm like, well, why is this lady allowed out by herself in South Africa? Like,
if she's that frail.
Yeah, you probably want to worry about the animals taking her.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but I mean, to your point, you don't have, crazy high ISOs back then. I mean, you didn't have any kind of digital photography back then, period. You had, film. Do the film speeds even go that fast, to catch something, to freeze frame it? There's so many variables that you had to have in place just to take this perfect shot of something moving in the air, that it's just, I don't know. It would be very difficult to fake that if you weren't a professional photographer back in those days. And most people that are in these situations weren't.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, and Matt did kind of back up. It was Bacteria and War of the Worlds. So thank you, Matt.
Okay, whatever. I was just looking at where Bohas's abduction took place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like way down south, middle Brazil, but it's way inland.
Uh-huh.
So definitely, probably a healthy amount of dimethyltryptamine
Okay.
from the ayahuasca.
Makes perfect sense. So, all right, let's jump on to the next one. And this one, too, came from that findingdulcina.com. This one is Kelly Cahill abduction of 1993. The Kelly Cahill abduction is one of the most perplexing cases in the history of alien abductions. In 1993, Kelly Cahill of Melbourne, Australia, and her husband were driving home one night when they noticed a bright light descending from the sky in the Dandenong ranges near Belgrave, Victoria. As they got closer, they saw what appeared to be a landed spacecraft with strange beings surrounding it. Terrified, Kelly ran towards the craft and got to get a better look, which kind of goes against itself. She's terrified, so she runs towards it to get a better look. So before she knew it, she was overcome by an intense light and lost consciousness. When she woke up, hours had passed, and she found herself lying on the ground with her clothes in disarray. Which is not.
I would just also like to point out in the original War of the Worlds, it's pathogens. It does not say bacteria. Pathogens include viruses.
Okay, all right.
I just like to point that out.
Now we got that extra clarification on War of the Worlds. I'm glad you did that deep dive.
Yeah, I don't like to be wrong.
I know. That's why I love it. That's why I love you, buddy. That's why you are the hardcore researcher.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So anyways, she was found, on the ground with her clothes in disarray. Again, not uncommon with obviously with alien abduction cases, because pretty much every one of these ended up with that same kind of scenario.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is actually 9:30.
Okay, we could keep going. We could finish this one out.
Okay. So, what makes this case particularly intriguing is that there was 4 other independent witnesses claimed to have seen the same bright light at the same time as Kelly's abduction. Additionally, many medical tests were conducted on Kelly after the incident, showed unusual physical signs that could not easily be explained.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, the Kelly Cahill.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister.
That quickly. Abduction remains unsolved, leaving many questions unanswered about what really happened that fateful night in 1993.
Very true. Very true. So again, we were trying to cover strange abduction cases around the world, and these ones are pretty strange, and they're not the most commonplace. Now we do have what does Josh say here? He says, on that Miami situation, I had some friends in Florida. I questioned them, wasn't on the news. They heard nothing about it. Yep. So it's again, probably like a bullshit AI thing that people were trying to pass off as being legit. And again, it just goes back to the point of you can't believe anything anymore because there's just way too many ways to fake stuff. So it is 9:30, and we do typically try and keep it to an hour, but we have a couple more stories. Do we want to do one or two more? I mean, we could skip the one that we talked about before and save it for a show all by itself. Or do you want to end? It's your call.
Let's do the more alien.
Okay. All right. Take it away, buddy.
So next is the Inkley Moore alien from 1987. In 1987, an intriguing case of alien contact occurred on the Inkley Moor.
Yep.
Inkley Moor is an area of moorland between Inkley and Kylie.
Yep.
Ugh. In West Yorkshire, England. I just don't like the way it just looks like Knightley, like Keira Knightley.
Right. Yeah.
It is also known for its carved rocks, particularly the swastika stone, which goes back to what we talked about in a past show and relating to other UFO activity around the rock carvings, petroglyphs, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
There have been many UFO sightings on the moor. Skeptics have suggested that this is because of a nearby proximity of Menwith Hill Air Force Base and Leeds Bradford Airport. Now, we're going to use a pseudonym here for Philip Spencer's going to be the pseudonym.
Mm-hmm.
Had moved from London to the remote West Yorkshire with his wife and their child in order to be closer to his wife's family following his retirement from the police force. On the morning of December 1st, 1987, Spencer began walking across Inkley Moor to visit his mother-in-law in East Morton.
Father-in-law, but same thing.
Yeah, well, he's going to see his mother.
In-laws. Brother-in-law. His in-laws all around.
Well, it was his wife's family, so he's most likely...
there you go. They're all in-laws. Oh. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I just had a good chuckle.
Yep. He'd taken a camera with him as well as his compass in case there was fog there on the old moor. Stay off the roads.
Which that head scratcher. It's a foggy day, so I can understand maybe the compass, but a camera.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if you're in an area that has all these cool stones and stuff like that, and it's also foggy. When you think about it, you're in the photography, right?
Yeah.
If you went, say, to like a national park and it was snowed or it was snowing currently, and you could take pictures of the monuments in the snow or in a nice fog or an early morning fog or something like that.
True. Yeah, that's true.
You might do something like that. No,
that didn't even click. So they have very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing I've always wanted to do is get photos of some of the Gettysburg monuments in the snow because they look so cool with the snow.
You got a few good ones. I remember that you sent me in the past.
Yeah. Now, according to Spencer, he was walking up a small hill when he noticed an odd-looking figure just up the trail ahead of him. It was dark green and about 4 foot tall, with an oversized head and long, thin arms. The creature made a gesture at Spencer, which he took to be a gesture telling him to stay away. But he took out his camera and took a picture of it. The creature then ran away, and Spencer followed. He lost the creature in the fog, but saw a craft rise from the moor and disappear into the sky. He described the craft as being of a whitish color and consisted of 2 saucer-shaped parts that were attached, with one being on top of the other. There was also a loud hum.
Again.
He did not take a photograph of the craft, of course. Rather, he continued on his planned route. Spencer headed to another town that was about a half hour away. When he arrived, he discovered that it was about 2 hours later in the day than he expected it to be, Additionally, the compass that he had taken with him was pointed in the opposite direction than it should have been.
That's interesting. I mean, and again, that's another kind of commonplace with navigational equipment always going, haywire when crafts are around, alien encounters occur and whatnot. Your navigational devices go nuts. Like, it wasn't in Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, the movie, when all the stuff in the car and everything was spinning out of control and whatnot. So common, very common.
Mm-hmm.
And again, loss of time, and it fits the bill. So, but while the photograph was being examined, Spencer claimed that he experienced strange dreams. Following Hughes' advice, and Hughes was I don't remember. I can't remember who Hughes was. But anyways, following the advice, he attended a session of regressive hypnotherapy. This was carried out by Jim Singleton on March 16th of 88. Under hypnosis, Spencer's original account of the incident changed. Singleton has called it a genuine recall. So now Spencer recalled that upon seeing the creature on the hill, he was instantly paralyzed. He was then lifted up a few feet and pulled into the craft. And again, this kind of goes back with this regressive hypnotherapy, how we remember things, something could trigger a deeper memory or a different memory, and things could change. And again, there was loss of time, he lost consciousness, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors there that could have, well, I don't really remember that because there were hours that had passed that he didn't remember. He was then lifted a few feet and pulled into the craft. And then when he entered the craft, a voice told him to be calm. A group of green aliens then performed medical experiments on him, inserting items into his nose and mouth. He was given a tour of the craft and shown a film. The film was shown apocalyptic imagery, including nuclear explosions, famines, and floods. Spencer was then shown a second film. He has never revealed the contents of the second film, saying that the aliens who abducted him do not want humanity to know. So following this, Spencer was returned to Ickley Moor, and where he then took the famous photograph. He claimed that the alien was actually waving goodbye to him, not telling him to stay away, as in his original account. And I do have a picture. This was the green being that he supposedly took a picture of while in the moor. Kind of a crappy picture, but then again, this was back in the 80s, so you're probably not having the best of equipment while you're going out, just leisurely strolling around if you weren't a professional photographer. So that was the Ickley Moor encounter. So what do you think about that?
It kind of being, that there are these petroglyphs and stuff in that area, and you start to go back to like Celtic folklore and mythology and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It almost kind of reminds you of some kind of like elemental type thing. Yep. Now again, elementals could be alien in a sense, yeah. But yeah, it just kind of reminded me of like that whole, like, just you get into that mythology of those places, and it's, there's a reason why those rocks were carved.
Yep.
These people didn't just pick random rocks in the middle of a moor to carve, or a random area to build a henge, or there was purpose behind all those what we would consider decorative things nowadays. Mm-hmm. There was a purpose to it. Maybe again goes back to like we were talking, Clovis is closer to the actual Roswell crash site than Roswell is. We have petroglyphs all in that area. We had other areas that we had high concentrations of petroglyphs. Pennsylvania and the Appalachian Mountains have a concentration of petroglyphs. Have a concentration of UFO sightings out in Africa and Australia. There's some areas that have some, carvings, Aboriginal stuff like that. That again have high UFO sightings.
Right.
Now, I think the second movie could have been Pootie Tang, but that was definitely something. I mean, no human should be subjected to that. That or like the first time you watch any Quentin Tarantino movie, you really feel like Quentin owes you money and part of your life back, and then you watch it a second time, you're like, oh shit, this is actually pretty freaking good. We walked. It's funny. We walked out of Inglorious Bastards, and I looked at my wife, and I'm like, Quentin Tarantino owes me like 3 hours of my life back. I watched it a second time. I'm like, holy shit, this movie is actually pretty good. And now it's like one of my favorite movies. The more I watch it.
Oh my god! I'll tell you, one of his movies that I always really liked was From Dusk Till Dawn, with George Clooney and him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it was like the strip club out in the middle of nowhere in the desert,
Titty
and it was all vampires. Yeah, Titty Twisters. Yeah. I love that movie. Yeah. So, do we want to do this last one? And it'd probably take us till 10 o'clock, and it'll be an hour and a half show. There's not a lot to it, so we could probably wrap it up pretty quick.
Yeah, what the hell? Let's do it.
Do you just want me to read through the whole thing really fast and we could talk about it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So the last place is in 1969, the Berkshires UFO incident. And this one is interesting because it involves and shocked an entire town. And according to allthatisinteresting.com, when numerous residents of Berkshire County, Massachusetts, individually reported having seen a UFO on September 1st in 1969, authorities were at a loss for an explanation. This wasn't a lone sighting induced by sleep deprivation that could have easily been dismissed. It truly appears as though something uncanny had occurred. On the evening in question, residents spotted lights above Sheffield in the southern Berkshires. Many of the witnesses said that the lights were fitted to an unidentified disc-shaped craft that was maneuvering in unprecedented ways. Some witnesses claimed they lost track of time. Again, common theme throughout tonight, as they gazed with stunned fascination at the object. Thomas Reed was 9 years old at the time, in the car with his mother, brother, and grandmother that night. The family noticed a group of glowing orbs dash out of the roadside trees. Reed claims that something astounding happened when, heading home, his family approached Sheffield Bridge. It came to a stop off the right side of the road. He recalls of the glowing orbs. Everything got really calm. It was like being in the middle of a hurricane. There was like a barometric change in pressure, and it was just like a dead silence. Then there was an eruption of crickets and frogs, and it got really loud, and that was it. Then the family suddenly found itself back in the car, but they had inexplicably lost 2 hours of memory. Stranger still, Reed's mother and grandmother had somehow switched car seats. So, despite any tangible evidence of the Berkshires UFO incident, Reed has remained steadfast in his account. He said over time the family regained some memory of the incident, including having been to a hangar-like facility with other people. We encountered something, said Reed. It was definitely not of this world. This hangar thing we were in was huge. It was larger than a football field. The hallway we had seen was circular with a Y configuration, almost controlled the flow of traffic. And he said this one room had a bowed-in wall that was rounded. It's important to remember that Reed was only one of dozens of people who reported witnessing a UFO in the Sheffield area that night. Excuse me. Some were adults who called into the local radio station to report the sighting. Others were children who began drawing UFOs in class. There must have been 20 or 30 sketches that were drawn by children in the fourth grade class of what they saw, said Reed. They hung underneath the class board in Sheffield Center School. More than one of these hangs in the Roswell Museum today. People don't realize the significance of this, and so it wasn't just us. So what do you think about that?
Sounds like a mass abduction in, Sheffield area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for 20 to 30 some kids to be drawing the same thing. Now, don't get me wrong, if one kid starts drawing and another kid starts drawing it after seeing the other kid, that,
Yeah.
But if these were even 15 independent drawings and then 15 more were just kind of copying it, you still have like 15 people, 15 kids who are fourth grade and they're drawing the same images.
Right.
I mean, and all the weird criteria fit the alien abduction phenomena.
Right.
The silence, and then all of a sudden coming to, or the next thing you remember, you hear all the animals, you hear all the noise around you. The odd thing is they misplaced grandma and mom.
Yeah.
Like, you would think in most cases, if you were grabbing, say, 5 people in a car, male, female, right? You would kind of remember male driver's seat, younger, the 2 females passenger seat, older female back seat, 2 male, juveniles next to each other. Then you might screw up one or the other of the kids, but like aged adults, you would kind of think you would, especially if you're an alien, you've flown across time and space.
Yeah.
You think you remember that, but that's also what makes me really believe the next part where it's talking about 20 to 30 kids drawing this. If it is a mass abduction, they're doing it quickly.
Yeah.
When you do stuff quickly, you screw up. So
the fact that 2030 were all the same thing,
yeah. So now all of a sudden you're looking at 20 to 30 at the same period of time, makes me really think like, okay, that's how that happens. Like, it's accidental the alien's part, but if you're abducting a whole small town or a village at one time, there are probably other people who, maybe fell asleep on the couch and woke up in the chair, or, fell asleep in their bed on the left side, but when they got up in the morning, husband and wife were switched sides.
True.
That, we don't have all that evidence or information, but all of a sudden it does sound like it's just a mass UFO abduction in this area.
And the fact that they all kind of describe the same thing with that hanger, excuse me, that hanger and stuff like that, it's too coincidental for that many people.
Yeah, you wouldn't have, like I said, if you had 30 kids drawing this out and 15 of them started, and then all of a sudden 15 other kids kind of copied it. But then again, too, like, even if they copied it, to have detail that maybe, little Johnny's looking at Susie's drawing, so he starts drawing it, but all of a sudden little Johnny's detail matches Stevie's detail that he didn't see.
Yeah.
The drawing of it, and all of a sudden his details match this, and Susie's match Kaylee's, and so to me it sounds like it was a mass abduction. And how many other people, I wonder if any other people in that area came forward or have come forward or have had some strange occurrences since then,
right?
Like the dreams and stuff like that, because a lot of these people, they start experiencing weird dreams, and then all of a sudden with the weird dreams is when they start to realize, like, hey, something happened that I don't recall.
Right.
I mean, I've lost time driving before.
Oh yeah. Where you're when you realize where you are, like, shit, I don't remember the last how many miles.
Oh yeah, I was driving home from work with one of my buddies, and we were driving from York, or from Lancaster to Miners Hall. And the whole section up 183, from like where you turn off of 222 on the 183, like, remember getting off the highway, getting on 183, there's that Redner's gas station over towards Blue Marsh.
Yep.
We don't ever remember passing it. and we used to stop there all the time on the way
Yeah.
home. We don't ever remember passing it. Next thing we remember, we're climbing up 183 going over the Blue Mountain.
Holy crap. That's a
Two of us.
stretch.
Yeah, that's a good 10, 15 miles.
Huh.
And not that the amount of time we lost was that great. I mean, it would be logical that we just weren't paying attention while driving at night.
Yeah, yeah.
But it does happen. People do lose time. You look at your watch and you think, oh, it's 5 o'clock. And you look at your watch and no, it's actually 7:30. I need to get going.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm notorious for that because I always get into conversations and I yak, and I'm like, oh shit, it's like midnight. These people got to get to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all these cases that we talk about here have a lot of similarities. They all kind of have the same kind of patterns and similarities. I don't know. Again, it's kind of take it with a grain of salt. You formulate your own opinion. We're giving you the basics of these stories. You could look into them further if you all want to. That's what we kind of encourage. But there's a common theme across all of these. So whether or not they're true, I don't know. But a lot of these happened decades ago. I think the credibility is definitely there more in a lot of these cases. If they were stuff that happened now, I would probably be more inclined to say, it's probably just bullshit. Somebody's looking for their 15 minutes of fame, whatever. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of these happened during times that shouldn't be talking about this stuff. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, go ahead.
The Inkley Moore story.
Mm-hmm.
I do recall bedtime stories covering it.
Oh yeah, I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, it's a pretty well. If you guys don't watch on YouTube bedtime stories, it's a very well done channel. They do some cartoon like backgrounds for some of this stuff, and they're focusing on one specific case when they do something like that. So you may find a little more detail in there. You might find some names of people to look up and research if you're interested in that. And
yeah, absolutely. Please, we encourage you guys to do further research on all these topics. Like I said, we try and give you the basics of the stories. I mean, we usually try and keep the show within an hour, but here we are, an hour and a half. But we try and cram as much as we can into the show just to give you guys a little taste of these stories. So do some further research, look into these stories more, and decide for yourself whether or not you think these cases are credible or legitimate or not. It's totally up to you and your discretion. But again, these were some of the more odd and lesser known stories throughout the world of abduction cases, and we really hope that you enjoyed it. And I think our next topic, which will be next Tuesday, right? If we're going to be keeping in line, because we missed last week because of...
No, I thought we were going Monday.
Oh, yes, that's right. Next Monday will be the next show. So then after that, it'll be 2 weeks thereafter. But the next Monday, 8:30, we're going to be covering cursed horror movies, to be more specific.
Yes.
So tune in for that. And I'm really looking forward to it because Chad brought it to my attention last week. And I'm like, I was literally getting goosebumps when he was telling me a lot of the topics and a lot of the stories that were involved in this. And I'm really excited to cover these with the next show. So tune in next Monday, 8:30, Facebook and YouTube Live. Hopefully we don't have any technical issues. Because I swear to God, if we do next time, then we're done. We are definitely moving to another interface, another app, because this was pissing me off. So, all right, thank you everybody for tuning in. We can totally appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you next Monday, which would be the 15th at 8:30. Cursed horror movies. We will see you then, Chad.
See you guys all later. Thank you for joining us. That's about it.
Yeah. All right. Again, thank you guys. Cindy says show was good from my end. No problems at all. Good. Because
Great.
Facebook, and she's commenting from Facebook, and
Yeah.
Facebook was the one that supposedly we lost our connection with, but seems like it worked. All right, everybody. We will see you next week, the 15th at 8:30. Thank you again. Good night.